service your existing car with us right now.
And it's worth £500 off your next car.
Yes, at Macklin Motors Toyota, we'll give you a £500 voucher off any of our brand new Toyotas when you book in for a service with our expert Toyota trained technicians.
We even have complimentary courtesy cars available, so book your service now and get £500 off any new Toyota.
Visit macklinmotors.co.uk or see us at Kennishead Road, Darnley.
Macklin Motors, the new name for Toyota sales and servicing in Glasgow.
Valid on services till 30th September. Excludes Motability and fleet customers. One £500 voucher per vehicle purchased by 31st December.
The Go Radio Football Show with macklinmotors.com. Your local friendly experts for new and used cars.
Let's go!
So Christopher Julian is on his way for a medical in Germany with Schalke. Will Celtic need another centre-back? Benfica returned to pre-season training without Jota, and he didn't return on Monday for Celtic. What's happening with the mercurial Portuguese star? And a fee of $1.8 million has reportedly been agreed between Rangers and PAOK Slavonica over the future of the Croatian star Antonio Colac. But they're holding out and holding up to see who would come in for him. So we're waiting to see if there's anything major today. Peter Grant is with us. You've got Peter and Paul on June the 29th. Good to see you, Peter.
Good to see you, Paul. I hope I don't get hung upside down tonight.
I hope not. I'm sure you won't. That won't happen to you. Peter Grant is here. 0808 17 17 700. So many rumours going on. A lot down south as well. And we'll talk about it in the next 60 minutes or so. First of all, what about Antonio Colac? What do you think? And is it linked? He's the striker, 28 years old. Looks as though a deal for nearly $2 million has been done, but they haven't decided, the Greek club, to let him go just yet.
I think the work's all been done, as we've said before. You're looking at the Relis situation. You keep having people coming out and saying about, oh, it would suit him to go to Spain and whatever. But Rangers must be sick of it, because it happens every year with him. You know, and as I say, I've never been a big fan. Last year was probably his best period, as I say, in the European games. Colac, great age, you know, by all accounts a very, very good striker, mobile striker, and I think that's a little bit different from Morelos. So I'm sure Gio will know his players he's wanting to replace him. I've said that before anybody goes out, you want to make sure you've got people lined up, and I'm sure that's what they're waiting on.
He did well for Rangers though in Europe, didn't he, over the years? I know he missed out that just a few weeks ago. We're talking about Morelos, but he's been terrific in Europe.
Yeah, in Europe, as I say, this year I thought against Dortmund and that he was excellent, you know. But as I say, I thought he was a liability prior to that. And league matches, competitions back here, the bread and butter stuff, I never thought he was fit enough. I think there was always issues with him when he went back home and coming back from even international duty, you know, with injuries and whatever. And I think, for me, I don't think it'll be as big a loss as people think for Rangers.
Really?
Yeah. I genuinely do, honestly, God, because I watch his goals, and I think if somebody else comes in there and it's like that quality, I think they'll get more of a team player, you know, with goals. And I think that's what Rangers are looking for. And I think to go to that next level, to start, listen, let's remember how many trophies he's not won in the period of time he's been here. As he's won one competition he's been involved in. So at the end of the day, you need your strikers in there all the time to score 25 to 30 goals, especially if they're playing for a Celtic or a Rangers, and I don't think he's capable of that.
Rangers fans, what do you think on that? 0808 17 17 700. Peter Grant with us. And text a message. Go plus your message to 87474. And we're on the socials, of course, at Go Football Show. Some of the other headlines then. What do you make about Jota? It's going on and on. Is it a wee bit worrying that he hasn't returned to pre-season training? I know some of the international players are not back yet, but he didn't play international football over May into June.
There's obviously reasons, because I think the way the manager speaks and the way he demands from his players, I think if he wants him back, he'd have been there. There is no doubt of that. But as you say, there's probably slight issues that he can't because the paperwork's not been signed yet. But I'm sure Celtic, if he's that close to being the Celtic player, which we expect, they'll have someone out there looking after him, making sure he's doing his work away from it. But as you say, till the paperwork's done, Paul, they can't come in the club anyway, you know. So that's got to be agreed with both sides. It's not just down to Celtic. Benfica have got to agree, allow him to come in. They're probably playing hardball over a certain situation or whatever. But I'm sure if Celtic think he's their player, they'll have someone out there working with him, because it's the thing the manager has demanded constantly, is the work ethic for everyone has got to be the same. And I don't think he'd be giving them a few extra days off just for the sake of giving them, that's for sure.
He wouldn't, because Rangers paid last year. With Morelos not coming back in time, I know he'd been away on duty with Colombia, but he played 9 minutes. And remember, he didn't come back in time to play in the Champions League qualifiers, which Rangers missed out on.
Well, you say that's when you've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
Pre-season is a difficult time anyway, and I know it's slightly different now because of the amount of game time up until the season finishes. The gap between starting again is not very big, so sometimes the rest can do them the world of good. But Morelos had a hell of a lot of injuries last year as well, so he missed a lot of time as well. So Jota had a few injury problems. I know he'd come in and played a lot of minutes for Celtic when he came in. But as I say, I don't think it'll be down to laziness because, as I say, I don't think that's one thing that the manager would accept anyway. So it's just a matter of seeing, hopefully, they get the signing done so they can get the full group together, especially, as you say, the quick build-up to the European games.
German centre-back Malik Thiaw could be on his way from Schalke, so there could be a bit of there'll be money obviously to Celtic if Christopher Julian passes the medical and if he goes there. What did you feel about Christopher Julian? He started so well and he was a big favourite of the Celtic fans.
Yes, as I say, it's been unfortunate for him with the injury he got. As I say, you thought he was going to turn into a top quality player. And as I say, it's been unfortunate yet again through injury, and I know what it's like with these guys with injuries, and if you can't get back from it, it seems to have been a hell of a long time with a really, really bad injury, obviously. But as I say, it's just been unfortunate because it's been great to see him progressing and becoming a top quality player. People were talking about Van Dijk, the amount of money he got for Van Dijk at the time. Now all of a sudden, was that going to be Julian going to be the next one to be going to be that amount of money? And it looked that way at first, So now it'll be interesting to see when he's back to Schalke if that's where he ends up going. A massive club who've just come back into the Bundesliga. But I definitely think, even if Julian would have stayed, I definitely think it's an area that Celtic need to strengthen anyway. It's interesting, it's a young one at 20 years of age, as I say, especially getting into European games. But yet again, it comes value for money because I've said many times, it's very, very difficult to go and get the players you would like because financially it's impossible. It really is financially. It comes down to that. We all know the quality will make you better right away, but trying to afford that to bring it to the Scottish game is very, very difficult.
Celtic fans, what do you think? 08, 17, 700. We heard about Jordan Larsson. We broke the news on Monday that he's been released by Spartak Moscow. Maybe no surprise with what's going on in Ukraine. Could he be coming back? Larsson for Celtic?
If he's half as good as his father would accept that. No, listen, I've seen him a few times and he's looked really, really good striker. I know he got a little bit of criticism when he played under his father, I think it was, and the fans were giving him a bit of stick and whatever, but he was a young man and he seemed to take it very well. And then I've seen him in other games, not live, I've watched television games live, and I was very impressed with him because it's not an easy name to follow in the respect of that, and especially the quality his father has.
Was he like his dad in some ways? If you looked at him and said, he's a Larsson?
Well, I think it's very difficult to be like Henrik, I mean? I think he was a one-off, he had as I say, a combination of an unbelievable mentality. I think that was his biggest part. Apart from his talent, he had an unbelievable mentality to go and play, as I say, even the time at Manchester United, where it was like Barcelona, European, turned the European final on its head, becoming on as a substitute, and the quality showed at Celtic Park. So it'd be very, very difficult to follow the footsteps of his father.
He was one of the greatest ever free transfers, wasn't it? Because Man United got him on a free at that point in that short period. And remember, Sir Alex wanted to keep him, but he was honourable and said, no, I said I would go back to my parent club, and he did.
The big thing was as well, when I think it summed up when you had the likes of Scholes and that squad of people all clapping him at the end of one of the games. He was that good. And it's great for Scottish game, that, because I've always said that, because you look at, especially at Celtic, you had Charlie Nicholas, you had Brian McClare, you had Henrik, you had Van Dijk, all these guys going down to England and proving that if you can play for Celtic, you can play down south. People always say, they're only playing up in Scotland, but I think they proved it time and time again that they could handle playing for any of the big clubs down there as well.
And of course, Virgil van Dijk has done it in more recent times, Victor Wanyama to an extent as well, and for Rangers we hope Nathan Patterson does it.
Absolutely.
At Everton.
Absolutely. And that, as I say, Barry Ferguson done it. Who? Barry Ferguson, exactly.
He's back on Friday. It's brilliant. He's been on holiday.
That's what I'm saying. So he done it with him down south as well. Showed how good a player he was. So a lot of guys have went down here and proved themselves fantastic. Look, Kevin Gallagher.
Yeah, that's right. Ex-Dundee United.
All these guys, went down there. And as I say, it's brilliant to see that happening. And I'm sure, hopefully, that's going to come again.
Joe Aribo, Crystal Palace still reportedly interested in him. You begin to think that he could be off this summer. How much money do you think for Joe Aribo?
It's very difficult because when you're talking to English teams, you can get as much money as you want, really, because you're talking about Crystal Palace. If they finish bottom league, I think they'd get 120 million. So that's the difference. But what I look at, when I look at like say Aribo, could they play in the Palace team that I seen under Vieira last year? And the answer is yes, because of the way they play. you know, and I think that's the difference, you know, because I see a lot of guys get mentioned with this club, that club, and I'm thinking, that's not the way they play, that's not their style. It'd be a waste of time him going here because that's not the sort of way the manager plays or whatever. But like Aribo, you could see him playing with a Crystal Palace, you know.
And the Palace, they're quite solid now in the Premier League, aren't they? You know, they've established themselves. You can take nothing for granted, but they've gone, you know, just above, towards the mid-table.
Well, he seems, from the middle to front, he seems to have got a lot more youth in it, you know. James McArthur goes in there and still holds it together when he's fit, you know, but it seems to be a lot more youthfulness going into it. They bought a couple of boys from Reading who'd done exceptionally well, but you bought a couple of boys from Reading for about 10 million each. Yeah. And that's the difference. That's what I'm saying to you now. That's the quality you're talking about, the amount of money you have to pay. But I say, Aribo, with his qualities, he could play in the Crystal Palace side, you know, and it's not easy because, as you say, it's for a bit like Celtic we're talking about, Jota and whatever. We're saying, well, it's no use going on holiday because you're only champions for 4 weeks. Sure. Because you've got to get ready to go again. You know, that's the standards you're setting up. But they say with Crystal Palace, they'll be looked upon next year to see how well they can do.
Peter Grant gives you 4 weeks as champions and then you're back on to do it again. And 3 points on a Saturday. You enjoyed that for, as a manager, how long was it?
Well, manager? To 5 o'clock.
The game finished at 5 to 5.
That was
5 minutes.
But that was it. You give yourself 5 minutes. As a player, maybe at 5:30.
Yeah.
You know, but 5 o'clock, because as soon as you're up to do the press, that was you done. Talk about the game, and then all you were wanting to know who your next opponent was and how the day got on and what system they played. And that was the way it was. Then the summertime comes and all you're trying to do is bring players in to make you better for the following year.
Yeah.
And that just never stops.
Some international players. What about Lewis Ferguson? So this time last summer, remember he asked for the transfer request. There was an offer in from Watford. Aberdeen said no. And you don't often get players putting a request in, but that was last summer. Everyone feels he probably will move. It's going to be Millwall, apparently, are in the race for him now. What do you think about Lewis Ferguson and what kind of fee would that be?
Millwall have done well, but I think Lewis is better than that.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's better, and that's not being disrespectful because Millwall have punched above their weight, just missed out in the playoffs. You know, they've got an experienced manager there who's been about the course before. I think Lewis can do better. I think he's had to change his position under a couple of different managers at Aberdeen. I used to like him running forward late and arriving in the box, you know, and I thought that was his strength. Then he was more of the deeper one, you know, and I thought that taken a little bit away from his game. But there's no doubt he's got the qualities and, you know, the mentality, and he's got a great football background. I thought his dad was an excellent player, you know, so I think that's the difference. And I think his dad will be there. I know he'll not be telling him what to do, but he'll be giving him wee bits of advice on what to be aware of, especially in the modern day game. And you don't jump at the first thing. I think he's got to jump at the right thing. I think that's the most important thing, you know. I think that's the most important thing, that he's got to jump at the right thing. And it doesn't matter if you've asked away or not.
Uncle Barry will tell him as well.
Absolutely.
What to do, won't he?
100%.
We haven't spoken to this young man for, well, I think it's over a month. Maybe been on holiday. Reagan, you're back. Reagan, good evening.
Paul, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. You've had a good break.
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yep, it was a nice time in Spain.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I was there, but I missed you. I never saw you. I can't believe. In Spain.
You said you seen Reagan and you walked past him.
Oh, hardly. Reagan, you know that's not true. Whereabouts were you, roughly?
But just to Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, near Barcelona. No, that was too expensive for me. I couldn't. Come on, you kidding? Reagan, what are you thinking? You're a big Scotland fan, a big Celtic fan. What are you feeling about the news? First of all, what about Christopher Jullien? Looks as though he's going to go to Schalke.
I'm quite sad, Paul, but it's quite obvious that Ange Postecoglou doesn't fancy Jullien as a player. Mm-hmm. So you need to back Ange Postecoglou, especially after what he done last year. But yeah, I think Celtic are going about their business very well. Look at Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen are strengthening well as well. They've signed about 9 players so far.
Yeah, they have, and we thought they would back Jim Goodwin, didn't we, Peter?
Yeah.
And they have done, and everyone's saying it, he needs to get off to a good start. What about Liam Scales, for example, on loan? But I think Jim Goodwin wants to buy him.
Well, I must admit, I was impressed with Liam when he played with Celtic. I thought he showed that, being able to play in front of the supporters. I think that was important. Played in different positions and handled it very well. And I think it's a very good acquisition for them, you know what I mean? I think he would find it very, very difficult to get that in the market anywhere else, even down south. Someone of his quality for the types of value that, as I say, wages and everything that's incorporated in it. And I think it's a very good signing for them.
Reagan, let's hear a wee bit from your manager, from Ange Postecoglou. What about signings? And he has been busy in January, as we know, and during the early part of the summer as well.
You know, last year I was really keen to get people in the building, and we kind of knew we'd have a few leaving as well. So it was a sort of very hectic time. I thought the January window we kind of worked a little bit more methodically and kind of knew what we wanted, and we got it in early. And it's the same this time. I'm not one to rush things. For me, the most important thing is to get the right players in. That's the key for me. And it's not just about them as players, it's about them as people. So, for that to happen, we can't put timelines on things. Obviously, I'd like, the earlier we can get players in, the better. We've got a unique scenario this year, which everyone knows about, is that we've got a clean pre-season without any competitive games, which is a great advantage for us. I mean, I think for me, apart from strengthening the squad, is just being able to work with the group of players we had last year in pre-season is going to be invaluable as well, because most of them either missed pre-season or sort of we threw them in during the season or halfway through a season. So even working with the existing squad over the next 3 or 4 weeks with the coaching staff will be invaluable.
Peter, what do you take from that?
I think he's correct, and that's what you get with getting the moments that you can get this wee bit of time now because you were successful in your first season. If you weren't successful in your first season, the fans would be going crazy saying, we've not done this, we've not done that. Yep. And that buys you that little bit of time, and he deserves that. He deserves that. And as I say, the quality he's brought in, now he's got to add to it, because the biggest challenge, I say to the Celtic guys, has always got to be the training ground, the mentality on the training ground. Can we get that right, that so the boys that come in lift the guys that's already there to another level again? Because they've got to go again, because that's the expectation, to go and win the league again, to go and win the treble this year, not the double, to go and win the treble. And that's what playing for Celtic is. That's what you've got to try and achieve, and to do that you need quality players.
Let me throw something at both of you. Regan, is Jota, has he got that never stop mentality that the manager demands? And how do you feel about Jota? Is he coming?
Yeah, Paul, I think he'll be here tomorrow. Yeah, no, he's definitely been partying all summer, Paul. But yeah, I think he's a top class player, and I think he's someone that Ange Postecoglou can build his Celtic squad around. I've got one question for Peter. Obviously, he knows Matt from his days down in the Premier League. See, Matt, for me, just watching him over the past 6 months, I think he can go to the very, very top. Now, obviously, he's played in Denmark and he's doing well, but I think he could. I think he's the one player in that Celtic squad that I think this guy could be a top 6 English club in the next couple of years. Because people talk about Maeda, Kyogo, but I think Matt is someone that really, really impressed me.
No, I agree with you, Regan. As I always said, as a youngster, he had a wonderful left foot. His biggest concern was his fitness levels, because he couldn't play as often, because, as I said before, he'd had a slight back injury through his groin. He was such a big lad as a kid, and it was very difficult for him to go on the training pitch. And my only concern was how was his fitness levels going to maintain to see his talent, because as I say, he's got a wonderful left foot, as you've seen. He sees pictures, he can hit short and long passes, he can open the door, he can see the spaces if people have got good movement, and he's got that quality. Great set play delivery as well, and people look upon that not as big as probably as they should, because the amount of goals that scored for set plays, I think, is somebody said come up with some record or something like 85% of goals are scored for set plays or crosses. So when you've got somebody like Matt O'Reilly with a left foot, he's got. And now he's got another lift again, being involved with Denmark. That gives him a completely different thing to him now. Even if it is the under-21s playing international football, which helps him in the European when you're playing the European games. And I think that's going. I think he can go all the way. I think there is no doubt of that. The good thing is, hopefully, he seems to be playing a lot more games now and just keeping that fitness. I'd like to see him getting a right good pre-season in under the manager. That's what I'd like to see that he can maintain that, so he hits the season fully running, so he's not playing catch up. Because that's one thing about a football player, especially someone like Matt. He doesn't need to be playing catch up. He needs to be ready for the first games kicking in. But I agree with his quality.
And Regan, how much are you looking forward to the draw for the Champions League?
Yeah, Paul, I'm really looking forward to it. From one point of view, I hope Celtic draw to Tottenham, Paul, because that would be a dream for me. But I mean, for Celtic, I mean, it's been fantastic. Like you say, I think Rangers have been great in Europe the last couple of years, and it's great to see Celtic doing well in the group stages now. So, I just think it's going to be a good season in Scottish football ahead, because, like I said, Aberdeen are strengthening. You've got Lee Johnson at Hibs as well. You've got Jack Ross at Dundee United. So there's a lot of good managers in Scottish football as well.
Hey, you, that's my job to talk about the other teams. One singer, one song here. You're getting banned. No, Regan, it's great to hear you back on again. I hadn't heard you over the summer. And you're saying about Jota partying, but you were partying as well, as you should do. We loved meeting you last summer with Scotland. And finally, before the break, what about Scotland? Such a disappointment. We know that. It's gone, the World Cup. What are you thinking with the Nations League? It's going to be crucial in September. Can we do it against Ukraine twice and Ireland?
I think we definitely can, Paul. I mean, I think people overreacted against Republic Island. I mean, Steve was really well for us. But yeah, I think, like you say, the 2 Ukraine games will be so crucial. But if we can pick the 3 points at home and get a draw away, then Steve Clark will be top of the Nations League group and Scotland on the way to hopefully another European Championship.
Great to hear you. Thanks, Regan. Speak to you soon.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com. Your local friendly experts for new and used cars.
Let's go!
Thanks to Chris for the traffic and travel. So, June the 29th, Peter Grant, Paul Cooney on the Go Radio Football Show with Macklin Motors. We'll keep an eye on the tennis as well. Andy Murray in action tonight. Let's hope he can do it as he did on Monday. Let's take another call. Cammy is on the line, a Rangers fan. Cammy, good evening.
Hi guys, good evening.
Evening,
How you doing? You having a good summer?
Yeah, it's been. I'm still to go away. I'm still to go to my holidays, but it's been good so far.
Where are you going to be off to?
I'm going to Magaluf, my pals.
Magaluf. Yeah, I was dead. Yeah, Magaluf. I drove through it the other week.
It's a long time since I've been there.
I think your picture was still up, Peter.
Oh, Bucking Bronco was on that.
Magaluf, that'll be brilliant. So, do you think Rangers are going to sign somebody before you go on holiday? There's not that much happening so far, but you heard the news today. When I say it's news, we're waiting to hear if he is going to join Antonio Colac.
Yeah, obviously he played for Malmo last season at Ibrox against Rangers. He seemed a decent enough player, good finisher, good on the turn. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say I know a lot about him. No. I don't know anything, but
19 goals.
Ibrox, he was good. Yeah, good. But I think playing for Rangers, playing for Celtic, is a different ball game in general. Some players find it hard to adjust to. I think Cedric Kitt, when he came in, had a good goal record behind him, and didn't perform. So you need to wait and see what these players do once they get in the door. But I hope Rangers would have signed at least a few more players by now, especially since it's Van Bronckhorst's first proper transfer window.
Cammy, what do you think about the Morelos situation? You know, every summer for a Rangers supporter, you sort of hear the same stories. You know, he'd like to play in Spain, he'd like to do this and do that. Do you think he's done enough for Rangers to be worried about losing him? I think, as I say, the European games last year was probably the best I'd seen him playing. But apart from that, I don't think over the piece, you know, but obviously at my time it was McCoyston, my time, you know, and all these sort of guys. He's not on the same planet as these guys. You know what I mean? Nowhere near.
Cammy, do you agree?
Well, yeah, I agree that obviously every transfer window he is linked away, but I think this one seems to me to be the most crucial one because last year of his contract, so it's the worrying one. We think if he doesn't sign a new deal, then he'll be leaving next summer on a free, which is a situation we thought was happening with Connor Goldson. Obviously, he signed on, but I can't see him going. To be honest with you, I think I don't think he's got the same hype around him as Edward did. I think when Edward was playing for Celtic, there was a lot of hype around him, and hence why a Premier League club like Crystal Palace came calling. I can't see that happening with Morelos, but I think since Van Bronckhorst has came in, as you said, Morelos has been a different animal. He's been scoring a lot more goals, especially in Europe, really leading the line for me, and showing all different types of his game.
So, who do you think you're going to lose this summer? Because that must be part of the thing for Rangers before they know who they need to bring in. Calvin Bassey, do you think he'll stay or go? Stay. I
think he'll stay. I can't see it.
Sure. And that'd be great news. He could have Champions League, and he'll definitely have Europa League at least, and he would benefit from that, Peter, wouldn't he? Because he's still early in his career.
The kid was brilliant last year, done fantastically well. You know, I'm a big supporter of him when I've seen him play. And 3 different positions, it's very, very difficult to have a player that can do that, and he'd done exceptionally well. But as I say, when you're Rangers, it's all about that. And being so quiet, obviously I think Rangers know who they're able to keep at this moment in time. They know the ones that they're going to be able to keep, because if they're not, the guys you're mentioning, Aribo and all that, they're talking about 3 or 4 guys maybe been out the door. So before you bring anybody else in, so you've got to replace them. So then you've got your 3 or 4 coming in, plus extra ones that the Rangers fans want anyway to make you better than last year. So you're talking about a change over 8 players near enough you would need to be bringing in the door. If that was the case, you were going to lose these guys. So I'm sure Rangers must know that these guys have agreed to stay, and maybe they're waiting for that time to just announce it right for the fans, to give the fans that boost, which is great. 9 times out of 10 it's season books and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's important for them. And like say Golston, everybody thought he was away and signing a 4-year deal. So that was a big coup for them in the respect of that. But the Morelos one keeps coming back from me all the time. I think it's important that you try and replace him anyway, because I definitely think it's only a matter of time before he goes. He seems to be that type of guy for me. Before, he never really done much for Rangers for me, apart from last season. The seasons before, I always said he was a bigger hindrance than a help. And I think last season, as I say, European games, he was excellent. And then you're saying nowadays you've got to say, well, when's the best time to sell them? And unfortunately, when you're in Scotland, if your players play well, they come knocking because they know financially you've got to sell them.
What about Ryan Kent, Cammy? What are you thinking?
Ryan Kent for me is an interesting one, because I think we all know he's a very good football player, but for me he's very inconsistent. I don't think you don't get a Ryan Kent on top of his game 2 weeks in a row. For me, his best game in a Rangers jersey was Borussia Dortmund away from home. I think he was outstanding. But I don't think you get that consistency enough of him. I think that's what's going to hinder him from getting a big move.
That happens quite a lot with wide players, doesn't it?
But I think Cammy's 100% right. That was the best I'd ever seen him playing in any game, both with the ball and against the ball. I thought he'd done both parts of his game exceptionally well. And that's the sort of standard you've got to be at to be a top quality player, I believe. To play with the top teams. And that's what you're saying about Rangers, a Celtic. That's the expectation. It's not just the footballer, it's everything that goes along with that pressure of performing 90 minutes, week in, week out, 95 minutes, whatever it is, playing the big European games. Does he always step up to the plate? I don't think that was the case with Kent, but in that Dortmund game I thought he was magnificent. Showed you what he's more than capable of. So it bears to ask the question, why is that not a weekly occurrence for him?
Cammy, what about the old season? What do you think about it now? You've had, a month since Seville. Did you go to Seville?
No, I couldn't. I didn't have a passport.
You didn't? Gosh, there's a lot of people on there couldn't get the passport.
Absolutely.
What do you feel then about the end of the season overall? Oh, no, the season overall.
Ups and downs, I think, obviously. If you'd asked me at the start of the season, with Steven Gerrard still be there, I'd have said, yeah, I think that was a massive shock to me. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in. I think we were 4 points clear at the top of the table. Obviously, we dropped down to second. We lose the league. We win the Scottish Cup. But we get to the cup final of the Europa League. Listen, we never won it, but I still think it was a huge achievement, especially the teams that we beat. It was a strange season. I think it was good that Rangers ended it with silverware, because we've seen it when Ange Postecoglou came in. Rangers fans laughed. I'll say myself, I laughed. I thought it was a strange appointment, and he went. They won the league in the end, probably like a cancer. They were destroying every team. They went and won the League Cup, so it was important for Rangers to end it with silverware for me.
Peter,
see when you look at it, Cam, and you look at Steven Gerrard's team and Van Bronckhorst's team, what was a better team to watch?
In Europe, the better team to watch is Van Bronckhorst's team, but in the league, it was Gerrard's team.
So I think it's an interesting one. I think they play with a different sort of style, with Van Bronckhorst, and I think he's changed the team around a bit. I like watching his team because, as I say, he changes his systems within the game. Putting Lundstrom back and all that sort of stuff.
Which Steven Gerrard didn't like to do.
Never moved, really. It'd be player for player. That one would come off, that one would go in the same position. I think they've had that flexibility, and I think that even helped them, as I say, especially in Europe, because they were able to do that. But the players were comfortable in it, and that takes a good coach to be able to do that with them. So the players were more than comfortably moving from one to the other. But I must admit, I thought they had a different type of freedom with them under Van Bronckhorst. They knew their style. The wingers didn't play so narrow, and they played outside so they could get their 1v1s with midfielders running. And as I say, it was just a pity. I think that was probably the reason, that you bring the Ramses and that in. It was unfortunate for him. He got the injuries and wasn't up to the standard as in fitness-wise, because I think that's when that midfield run becomes massive for you. And that's why I thought, like say, Arfield would have played more games because he runs from the middle of the pitch. But I think that's what they were looking to do, and unfortunately for him, he got the injury. But I definitely must admit, I thought under that they had a wee bit more flexibility and they were more exciting to watch.
Cammy, I think that was a great answer from you. Peter Grant, the former Celtic star, saying who was the better team to watch, and that was good, because in Europe then that's what Celtic will have to do well and play a game. Well, will they? We talked about this last week. Will Celtic adapt for it? We'll come back to that in a wee while. Alan McGregor staying. You happy then, Cammy?
So it was one for me that if he left, I wouldn't have been too bothered, to be totally honest with you. But if he stayed, I think it's another good player to have around. It was the same for Stephen Davis. Staying on for me was the bigger one. I didn't expect Alan McGregor to stay on at all, to be honest with you. I think it may be a wee bit embarrassing now what happened in the cup final at Hampden. He comes on for the last minute and he gets his standing ovation, his round of applause, and then he signs a 1-year extension 2 weeks later.
Do you know what, Cammy, though? If he pulls off some great saves during the season, we'll speak again on the Go Radio Football Show and you'll say, do you know what? I'm glad he stayed. Who cares if it was a wee bit embarrassing? That has happened before. But I know what you mean. People thought that was him going, although Barry said he should stay another season. And
no, I agree. Yeah. I agree, because if he feels fit enough, and I know Alan's had a few problems, with injuries and whatever, maybe he's came to that conclusion that I couldn't have sat at the side and watched. Maybe Alan's came to this conclusion that if he's not playing, he's quite capable of helping out John McLaughlin or whoever, there. Maybe he sees that bigger picture. Maybe that obviously the conversation him and the managers probably had together. But he has a big influence. He's a big Rangers man, obviously, and people don't realise how important that is to make sure that people still understand what it is to play for a Rangers or a Celtic. It's still so important.
Cammy, if Douglas Park was listening in and you're on just now, what would you say to him? Who do you want to buy? What kind of money? Money doesn't always guarantee the success. We know that. But what would you like? What would you say to him and to the Rangers board?
I'd say back your manager. I think that was why. I think that's why Stephen Gerrard left the football club. I think he wasn't backed. I think to really go for it and challenge Celtic this year, because I think Celtic, to be honest, are a very, very good side, a very good manager. I think we need to be back, so we just need to either buy more players, because there's no doubt teams will come calling for our players. So when our big players leave, we need to back up and go, right, you get this money, you go and buy good quality players, and we'll put up a fight this season.
Because they did back Stephen Gerrard before. I know it took a couple of years, but they spent some big money. But I know there was that feeling in that season early on that there wasn't going to be the money for January. And then when somebody like Aston Villa come calling, it might be difficult to move on.
But that's always the case with Celtic and Rangers, because you can't pay. As I said, to Championship, I'll buy players, spend 5-6 million, 10 million. There I'm saying Crystal Palace bought 2 players £10 million each, from Reading. So that's the sort of market you've got to get into, because we all see these players. They can all make Rangers better, they can all make Celtic better. As soon as somebody puts £10 million down, you look at Brentford with Tony, with the Celtic situation. He'd have been a fantastic striker for Celtic. There's absolutely no doubt of that. And I know he was supposed to be in the building and all that sort of stuff. But then you've got to take that over the line, because then you'd have made money on them. That's the gamble you have to take. If we buy somebody late in their career and you're spending a lot of money on them, then it's a wee bit more difficult. But I think he's right. But I agree, it's difficult being the Celtic Rangers manager, because the fans will tell you we should go and do this, we should go and do that and spend that amount of money. But it's impossible, because you can spend 5-6 million. That's going to get you a youth team player down in England, and that's an unfortunate thing.
Good point. Cammy, before we go to the break, are you confident that you'll get a strong enough squad to challenge and overtake Celtic in the league?
Yes, of course I'm confident. I think the players will be confident as well on the back of last season. They know they can go out and beat big teams. They know they've got that quality behind them. I think the manager himself will want to add just a few more players to match his system. You've got to remember, these players are essentially Stephen Gerrard's players. They were the players that Stephen Gerrard signed. So the manager himself will want to go out and add a few of his players to add his style of play in the way he wants Rangers Football Club to play.
And Lundstrom, big success for you latter part of the season?
I think he'll be a key. This season he was brilliant. Last season he really came on. He was obviously in January he looked as if to be out. He looked to be out the door. I think he was going to Middlesbrough on loan. It looked like it turned around. Best game for me was the semi-final against Celtic at Hampden. He was sensational. He'll be another key player for Rangers this season.
Cammy, what was your highlight of the season? What was the moment that you enjoyed most as a Rangers fan?
Possibly the semi-final. I enjoyed the Dortmund one as well.
RB.
That was a big game that nobody expected us to win. When the draw was made, it was like, well, it'll be a good game to go to. You go out, you beat Dortmund away from home, you beat Dortmund at home. I enjoyed the semi-final at Hampden as well. beating Celtic. There was big moments for Rangers this season. It was just disappointing we never got that one into Seville. But
And before you go, can I ask Peter Grant, Peter, were you happy for Giovanni van Bronckhorst that they won the Scottish Cup final, given what they did all season and they'd lost the title, but then they went to the final in Europe, that if they had lost the final, it would, the history books would have shown nothing all season?
I was happy for him in the respect of I think he deserved that, because I think he was brave with decisions he made at certain times in the season. In big games, he made big calls in matches. I think he showed his experience. He's not just been a rookie manager. I think he showed that, and I think the Rangers fans ended up understanding, because I keep going back to the Aberdeen game when they were booing him really for Morella's going off, and Roof goes on and scores a winner.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think their moments, if as a manager, we've all been there, and it's very, very difficult when you're not got that support.
Are you swayed then by the crowd? I suppose you must.
No, you can't be, and that's what I think. That showed his steel. He went, okay, I'm going to take my striker off you, which is very, very difficult if you're needing to win the game, because at Celtic or Rangers you've got to win every week. And if you're taking your striker off, the game's 0-0, I think it was at the time, and that's the problem you have. But you've got to be brave enough to make the decisions. And I think throughout the piece, I think you've got to give him a tick for his performances as a manager, and as I say, pleased for him, because as I say, I can't say I'm pleased for Rangers. You know that, Paul. Come on, after the semi-final, I know that's what I'm saying. Come on, but as I say, so no, I think he showed his experience.
That's very fair.
And I think the big thing, I think the two managers for Celtic and Rangers showed a great respect for each other.
That's all we need.
That's what they showed for each other. If they get beat or they didn't perform, they accepted it. They didn't get to make excuses. They accepted it. The better team won on the day or whatever.
Cammy, Rangers fan, safe travels, enjoy Magaluf, and we'll speak to you in the new season. Adios.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com. Your local friendly experts for new and used cars.
Let's go!
Thanks, Chris. Peter Grant, Paul Cooney on the Go Radio Football Show. Peter, are you off to Green Day, round about the Ibrox area, Bellhausen Park tonight?
That's unusual. Green Day at Ibrox. That's unusual. Maybe I thought it was going to be Deacon Blue or something.
Hey. Who's your favourite band? Who would you say at the moment? Who would you?
I don't watch. I listen to anything, Paul.
Is that right?
Simple Minds was always one of my favourites. You know what I mean? So they were always one of my favourites. Yeah, absolutely.
Then at the waterfront here, the Go Radio Football Show. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I always
don't you forget about me.
No, I've said that to you a few times.
That's why you blocked me in the number. Right, Peter, loads of calls coming in tonight. Emma Raducanu is out of Wimbledon, the US Open champion. She's a magnificent young player, but I mean, it's just going to be so tough for her. She's out straight sets, 6-3, 6-3. She's lost out in her second appearance this year, Caroline Garcia.
But it just shows you, Paul, she's had a problem with injuries. We talk about football players. If you can't get all your training and the amount of work you're doing, she's had a lot of hype, obviously, since she won the US, and deservedly so. She's a very pretty girl. We're hoping that it's not all the stuff off the pitch that's taking over, because then you can't give up on that training and all that, because as soon as you step off the gas, and that's what I'm saying, you're champion. Everybody's after you.
Of course.
Yeah, everybody's after you. It's the same at tennis as at football.
Former champion is on next. It's Andy Murray. It's going to be tough though. He's against the 6'8", 9, 10 or something.
Not so bad himself, is he? Andy's not so bad himself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It will be
just
tough,
injury problems for him yet again. But great credit to him. He's fought really hard to get his fitness levels up so he can play in Wimbledon, and I'm sure the fans will be delighted to see him.
Some of the headlines then here at it's coming up to 10 to 6. It's the 1 hour special here in the summer, and tomorrow night Rob McLean will be here with Simon Donnelly. I'll be back on Friday night with Barry Ferguson. Barry, the former Rangers. Well, he is a legend. He's not a former legend, is he?
No, he's not a former legend. He's definitely a legend there, and captained the club in important times for them. So
one of the greats.
Yeah, he done fantastically well for them. As I say, I was always involved with us at Birmingham when we won the cup final as well. So Barry was there as well, and he was a right quality player. There's no getting away from that.
Sure is, and he'll be captaining the Rangers team against Celtic and against Liverpool and Man United. That's just in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it?
Yes, I've heard so. Absolutely. Yeah. Don't get involved in any warm-up games. 5-a-side, you kidding?
You
can't kick anybody in that.
Rangers, the deal has been done for around £2 million for the PAOK player, the Croatian striker Antonio Colac. They know all about him. He scored against Rangers when he was at Malmo on loan last season. And Christopher Julian on his way to Germany. He'll be in Germany for a medical, and he could well be signing for Schalke, who've just come back up to the Bundesliga. And also Celtic reported to be interested in a centre-back, 6'2" at Schalke, Malik Thiaw. He could be coming to Celtic. He's made over 50 appearances for the German side. So let's see. Down south, what about, Arsenal looks as though Gabriel Jesus is coming, £45 million. And it also looked as though Rafinha might be on his way there, but Chelsea have stepped in. And the latest word is they're going to treble his wages, and the lead star could be on his way to Chelsea.
I think he's been magnificent. I thought he was a shining light for Leeds, even in the difficult times, which is unusual for that type of player. But he was the one that seemed to grab them with the scruff of the neck, and lift the team and take them up the pitch really well. As I say,
took the pressure off.
Absolutely,
the defence.
Great quality. So it means Ziyech must be moving out of there because they're very similar, but he's obviously got an unbelievable work ethic. And I just think Ziyech maybe find himself. You could see that last year with Tuchel. It didn't seem as if there was that much love lost. Didn't play him as often as he should after being absolutely magnificent for Ajax. Because he's a wonderful, wonderful player with a wonder left foot. But he didn't seem to play as much under him, and I think that maybe be down to the system as well. Because they play the wing backs, and sometimes that affect. That's what we're talking about earlier on. It's okay buying the player, but if it doesn't suit into the system you play, it makes it very difficult for the player also.
And they've got a few players at Chelsea that just haven't fitted in, and of course the new owner, he's sporting director as well at the moment, and he's doing loads of business. So there's a lot happening there. Raheem Sterling also looks as though he's on his way from Liverpool. From Man City.
Yeah, but it's like, you think Raheem's been about for how long? And you think
we went from Liverpool so long ago. Yes.
That's what I'm saying, he's only 27
70
years
odd caps as well.
Incredible, and he's come on leaps and bounds under Guardiola. There's no doubt of that. But it'll be a big signing for someone, there's absolutely no doubt of that. His finishing's much better than it used to be. He still misses his chances, but it's much better than it was. His movement's much better. And as you say, it seems as if maybe he wants to go back down to London, because if you remember, that's where he started, was at QPR.
Yep. That's the latest from England. We keep hearing about Ben Davies. That's why I was thinking Liverpool there. He's been on loan from Liverpool. Remember, he signed, Celtic wanted him. It's a couple of years ago during COVID times. And then Liverpool, when Van Dijk was injured, so what's that, 18 months ago, he went there, but he hasn't played for them. Is there any chance he could be coming to Glasgow?
I think there's a possibility. It depends how highly the manager rates him, because our manager's changed as well. And that's the difficulty you have in his quality. But as you say, Ben Davies at the time, he was very much near enough in the door, and then all of a sudden Liverpool came in. But it was interesting when he went there, all the young boys kept him out of the team, and that can be down to different things, because of the different levels of fitness, the way Liverpool trained, maybe never got up to that level, because Ben was playing at Preston at that particular time and getting a lot of reviews. He playing very well. So listen, you never know, and hopefully, I think he ended up going to Sheffield United last year and loan actually as well. So it'll be interesting to see that one. But I definitely think, even before Julian had gone, as I said, I think it was important that we're going to fill that area as well.
He was only £500,000, I think, as well. But they're saying between 3 and 4 million is what it would cost.
It's interesting. You don't play a game.
I know. How does that work?
But that's what I'm saying. That's the problem you have at Celtic and at Rangers, and that'll know the players that's out there. But as soon as you get in, the finance is completely different, because even to go there and not even get a game, his wages were probably treble. I don't know, many times his wages went up for what he was on at Preston. So it's not just the actual fee you're paying, it's the wages that he's on now that you've got to come to some agreement with.
Judy Murray is at centre court. She's not on it. Her son is, though, against the 6'10" American John Isner. So we wish Andy Murray all the very best tonight. Let's hear a bit more from Ange Postecoglou. He's talking about the pre-season. They're off to Austria next week. Here's the manager.
Super important, because, as I said, once we get to the first round of the Premiership, we know from then on up until the break, probably in November, we're going to be going at it, and we want to be ready. We have to be ready. We know we got off to a slow start last year, and we certainly don't want to be doing that again with so many important games early in the season. So I think it's a good program we've put together. There's a mixture of us sort of going away, which is great, and playing against different types of opposition. We've got a couple of games at Celtic Park. We've got a couple of sort of European trips in the middle, which hopefully prepares us for Champions League and the travels we got there. So we've tried to put sort of a program together we think will give us the best chance to be ready.
Peter Grant, where are Celtic for you with regard to Champions League? What are you thinking? What do they need now in the next month or so?
I think they need a good window again. I think it's important if you want to raise the levels where you are, not just to become, we're in the Champions League and that's good enough, let's finish bottom of that table. I think it's important. The manager spoke about it. He wants to start proper this year. He's got a little bit of time with the team because he's got a few weeks different to what he had last year, so they weren't ready. But that's why it's important the Jotas not get back in the building if they're going to be coming. The new boys that are trying to they've got to get them in the door, because once it starts, it does not stop. And that's his saying, isn't it? But that's the way the league's going to be, the cup's going to be. everything this season. There's going to be no break, so everybody's got to be right on the metal right from the first go, and that's why I think the squad size is going to be massive this year, because it is unusual, as we spoke about many times, about the World Cup in the middle of it. So all these things, the European games, players going away and whatever, international matches, you will need that cover there if you're involved in Europe.
It's non-stop, isn't it, when you're involved with either Celtic or Rangers? The mindset is so important, and everyone knows about Ange's mindset. We never stop, that's what he says.
We didn't set out with any specific targets last year, just to be the best we could possibly be, and it'll be the same this year. And if we can improve on our performances from last year, which we have to, if we can improve in everything we do, then we're going to finish in a pretty good spot. You don't know what that means in terms of tangible sort of results, but every year I've started a football season, I want it to be the best it can possibly be, and again, that's our aim this year.
So just over a month away, Peter, from Livingston against Rangers, Celtic Aberdeen in the opening day, and it's going to be some season. What about Rangers then? Final thoughts there? I think by the time we meet next week, you'd imagine Rangers will know either in or out with the club. We'll know about Morelos maybe, or we'll know about who is coming in.
I think that, as I say, Gio will know that already. He's just waiting there now in case, like say Bassey for instance, if somebody wants Bassey, they know exactly they'll have to pay for him. They maybe not be sitting there saying, well, if somebody comes in and blows that away, there's nothing we can do to stand in his way because it's beneficial for us, and then we can set something out to bring others ones in. And I think that's what they're looking at. Standing as their group is just now, they probably need 4 or 5 players. That's the way their group is. If they keep them all together, I still think they'll need 4 or 5 players for that group to go and lift everybody else round about it. And I think very similar with Celtic. Celtic will need that as well, because Celtic are champions, and people, as you say, people are desperate. You're talking about Radicchio there at the tennis. People are always desperate to knock out the champions. And that's the way it is for Celtic and Rangers, but that's the way it is in Glasgow anyway. That's every season, no matter how good or how bad you've been the season before, the next season you're expected to be number one, and number one's the only thing that counts.
Peter, thanks for joining us. You're heading down to the Midlands, and someday before most of our time, but Bobby Hope, he was a great player. I remember the name. He had 7 Scotland caps, I think, played at West Brom, and
won the League Cup, won the FA Cup. So sadly Bobby died, so I'm going down to his funeral, which is tomorrow morning. So I'm driving down there tonight. So but as a great man, he was at West Brom with us, and he was the chief scout there for many, many years. But as I say, very unusual. I think he got 2 caps for Scotland and got 5 on a South American tour, but they only counted in later years. So that's why I ended up with the 7 caps.
It's terrific going down, because he had one team in Glasgow for him, and it wasn't yours.
No, he was a Rangers man, but used to have some banter. But he was a great, great man, And as I say, it's just very sad.
Peter, thanks a lot for joining us.
Pleasure.
Okay, we're back tomorrow night with Rob and Simon Donnelly, live at 5.
The Go Radio Football Show with MacklinMotors.com. Your local friendly experts for new and used cars.
Let's go! Service your existing car with us right now,
And it's worth £500 off your next car.
Yes, at Macklin Motors Toyota, we'll give you a £500 voucher off any of our brand new Toyotas when you book in for a service with our expert Toyota trained technicians.
We even have complimentary courtesy cars available, so book your service now and get £500 off any new Toyota.
Visit macklinmotors.co.uk or see us at Kennishead Road, Darnley.
Macklin Motors, the new name for Toyota sales and servicing in Glasgow.
Valid on services till 30th September. Excludes Motability and fleet customers. One £500 voucher per vehicle purchased by 31st December.